Do you ever feel weak as a Christian, like you don't have the strength to keep on going? Perhaps you've been really excited by the glimpse of heaven we've had in the opening chapters of Revelation, and yet despite your excitement, you're just not sure you're going to make it. Well, if you feel like that, Psalm 114 has some wonderful truths to encourage you along the way. It speaks of how there is something within us, but that doesn't come from us, which not only gets us started in the Christian life, not only will see us over the finishing line, but will also keep us going along the way. And it does that by looking back to the greatest salvation in the Old Testament, to the Exodus from Egypt and the journey to the Promised Land. We read in verse 1 that when Israel came out of Egypt, Jacob from a people of foreign tongue, Judah became God's sanctuary, Israel his dominion. Here we read of the power that dwells within the believer, God himself. God saved his people from slavery in Egypt to be his sanctuary as he dwelt among them in the tabernacle. He got them started on their journey to the promised land. And of course, what is true for Israel is true for us, the church. God saved us, his people, from slavery to sin, to be his sanctuary as he dwells in us by his Spirit. He has got us started on our journey, not just to the promised land, but to the ultimate promised land, the new creation. And of course, back after the Exodus, God didn't only get them started, he eventually saw them over the finish line too. In verse 3, we read that the sea looked and fled, the Jordan turned back, the mountains leapt like rams, the hills like lambs. You see, not only did God see them safely through the Red Sea at the start of their journey, he saw them safely through the Jordan at the end as well. And the same is true for us as Christians. Not only does he give us new life at the start of our journey, he also leads us safely through death at the end. As the wonderful Welsh hymn, "Guide Me, O Thy Great Redeemer," puts it, when I tread the verge of Jordan, bid my anxious fears subside, death of death and hell's destruction, land me safe on Canaan's side. We have nothing to fear because he will see us safely to the end. But what about in between? What about between the beginning and the end? Is there a danger we'll fall along the way? No, even that part of the journey is secure. He kept the Israelites going, and he will keep us going too. He gave them his law, which led to the mountains trembling in verse 4 as he came down to speak to them, that they may know how to live. And he gave them all they needed to sustain them along the way. Verse 8 reminds us that he is the God who turned the rock into a pool, the hard rock into springs of water. He brought forth water in the wilderness to sustain them. And he does the same for us on our wilderness journeys too. He keeps us going along the way. We have his word to teach us, and we have his Spirit to sustain us. So be encouraged. There is something within you, but that doesn't come from you, which not only gets you started, not only keeps you going, but will see you over the finishing line in the Christian's life. God's Spirit will not let you go. But perhaps you're not in danger of despair. Perhaps you're in danger of taking this all for granted. Well, if that's you, maybe you need to join in with the sea and the river, the mountain and the hills, in verse 7, trembling at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob. Because it is no small thing that God has done for you. He is the mighty one we're to be in awe of. He's the one who makes sea dry to save his people and makes the parched rocks flow with streams of water to sustain them. Our God is mighty and awesome indeed.